I'm not very political. However, over the past year, I have sparked an interest because of how self-insert it's been in our media. Cartoons dating back to 1754, which is like 266 years ago, started out political to simplify current events. Even when you look at the old Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck cartoons that released in the 1940s, you see Bugs or Daffy against the Japanese or Nazis, since those were war times then. So, cartoons and comics have been always vocal about their creative team's stance on the world. Just to be clear, I'm neither left wing or right wing in politics, but I can get annoyed hearing both, especially left wing politics. I've been sitting on this particular topic for a while, so I'll say my piece. Yes, I think representation matters to some extent, but I feel like it can be overdone a lot. Like the CW Batwoman show, where the only thing notable about Kate Kane's character is her sexual orientation and her gender, unlike her comic book counterpart, who is much more in depth. There's also the treatment of Carol Danvers' character, where Marvel writers are giving her unnecessary pushes to make her come off as female Superman. Then there's also how Marvel traded up She-Hulk's more prideful, sassy attitude for a more dumb, generic clone of her cousin. They even got rid of her attractive feminine qualities to make her more muscle-bound and unappealing. Mind you, She-Hulk was fine the way she was, and was such a likable character. She was basically co-starred in the Incredible Hulk and She-Hulk cartoon, voiced by Cree Summer. The identity politics are so predictable. The same writer, Mariko Tamaki, as She-Hulk, is facing quite a lot of criticism for her upcoming story, I Am Not Starfire, about Starfire's overweight gay gothic daughter, Mandy Coriander. And to me, Starfire was another attractive hero from my childhood, soon to be ruined by bad writing. Some people say the daughter looks like Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin. I originally said she looks more like Raven, but that's an insult to the character. Also, my snarky comment was enough to get me blocked on Twitter by the writer herself, so that just tells you that she can't take criticism. There's even people saying she's a self-insert character, which they're right about. Although it's not recommended as a writer, but if properly written like Josh from Close Enough, Mordecai from Regular Show, I guess it could work. I mean, they were based off of J.G. Quintelis' personality and his life, so I think it could work out. But how does any of this affect me personally, or anyone else for that matter? For one, nerds or people like me turn to this type of stuff for escapism. Escapism is what people turn to take a break from reality, such as the virus, so we can feel more mentally stable. And two, I'm a passionate artist and writer myself, and someday I want to get into this type of field. Unfortunately, this kind of thinking has been affecting the work environment for the worse, where writers are losing their audience when they put heavy emphasis on the characters and the tone of the story. Another scenario is when Jenny Slate, the voice of Missy from Big Mouth, gave up the role because she's not of the same ethnicity as the character. If she quit for that reason, that's fine. However, that's just white guilt. Tara Strong has voiced male characters and has no problem doing it. Phil Lamar has no problem voicing characters of different race like Samurai Jack or Hector Concarnate. Kevin Michael Richardson has no problem voicing different characters of race like the Joker or the Shredder. Roscoe Lee Brown, a black actor who voiced the Kingpin back in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, provided a superb performance for the character. So my question is, how is it equality if we feel as though we're owed something? Then there's the kind of people who say there's not a lot of diversity in cartoons, when I could pull up a lot of data examples that there are. Charles Schulz was the writer of the Peanuts comics and created the African-American friend of Charlie Brown, Franklin, in 1968. The DC Comics cartoon Super Friends had Black Vulcan, an African-American superhero, Samurai, a Japanese native superhero, Apache Chief, a Native American superhero, and El Dorado, a Hispanic superhero back in 1977. They weren't as big as Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman, not because they weren't Caucasian, but they weren't fleshed out enough. But there has been characters in the comics who are diverse, like the second set of X-Men featuring Wolverine, who's Canadian, Nightcrawler, who's German, Storm, who's African American, Cyclops, who's Russian, Thunderbird, who's Native American, and Banshee, who's Irish. Sure, most of these guys are white, but it's people from different walks of life and nations, which is what makes it diverse. Then there's the minority heroes like Falcon, Black Panther, Luke Cage, Cyborg, Black Lightning, Jon Stewart, Vixen, Bumblebee. War Machine started out fulfilling the role as Iron Man until he became his own individual hero. Monica Rambeau, the Captain Marvel before Carol Danvers, was a black woman who led the Avengers, not to mention the other minority heroes like Misty Knight, or the heroes from the Milestone comics. Then there's the supporting characters like Lucius Fox, Robbie Robertson, and Randy Robertson, who are fan favorites. Most of these characters have been around since 1966. That's like 54 years. So when people advocate for more black representation in comics or cartoons today, they don't know what they're talking about. There's representation in shows like Avatar, El Tigre, Mucha Lucha, Owl House, Loud House, Casa Grandes, Amphibia, etc. What I'm trying to say is people need to spend less time complaining or just do the research for themselves. Now, I can't say we live in a world free of racism, misogyny, or homophobia, because that'd be a goddamn lie if I say exactly that. Like in some foreign countries like the United Kingdom, Africa, Italy, France, etc., have either censored the hell out of Steven Universe, or some like Kenya, which is just outright banned it for having LGBT themes, which comes across as homophobic. And we know how some of these countries are about their laws and religion. But getting rid of characters who have been around for like 30 years like Apu from The Simpsons isn't fighting against racism. Just to be clear, I'm not an SJW trying to make everything about race or gay issues, and I'm not like Candace Owens claiming men shouldn't wear dresses, although if that's the kind of thing you do if you're feminine, a drag queen, or a trans woman, it's a free country. I mean, I brush my teeth while I'm in the shower. But I'm only a 21-year-old black guy, and there are non-black characters I can relate to and admire. Some of my favorite cartoons that include representation or identity politics are like Steven Universe, Owl House, and Kipo, The Age of the Wonder Beast. The reason for that is because they focus on quality over quantity. So if you want to make something about diversity, just keep an open mind.